Let's speak now to David Kearns, who's the Managing Director of Expert Investigations, which investigate fraud cases. Good morning to you, David.
Morning, Andy.
I mean, just listening to Lucia's story there, I mean, it could happen to any of us. What do you make of it?
That's really common, the fraud that Lucia has been subject to, and frauds are happening every day to us. A lot of the time we don't even know that they're happening. There's a responsibility on us as individuals now to be mature and realistic and responsible with accepting that fraud takes place. Lucia's was quite interesting because they sent a courier driver to deliver it and then collect it. Quite often in these cases, Andy, they send it via the post for a delivery, and then the courier will then turn up and ask for it.
And how big is the fraud business? Is it just chancers, or does it involve organised crime?
Oh, wow. It's a massively professional network of fraudsters working across the world, which makes it really, really difficult because you'll have frauds that are perpetrated from other countries. Their banking system will be in another country completely separately, and therefore then it makes it so difficult for the police to individually investigate each kind of fraud. What we have to do nowadays, Andy, is we have to look at fraud and fraudsters like we would look at somebody that's trying to burgle our house. So we have a house alarm, we have window locks, we make sure the door's locked, we leave lights on. We have to adopt that approach and methodology, as I say, in being mature, realistic and responsible when we are looking at the vulnerability of being hit by fraudsters in all manners, in all different ways. The BBC put out earlier on, over the weekend, £50 million worth of romance fraud and romance scams every year. You know, that figure has been consistent over the last 5 years. So, you know, fraudsters will hit you from all directions.
Okay, so what are the do's and don'ts? What can we do to prevent it? Because it sounds like it can happen really easily.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's a complete education process because this is something that your listeners and the average person does not come into contact with a lot of the cases because they don't know they've actually been subject to a fraud or being a victim of fraud, or in effect a facilitator. In Lucia's case, somebody's taken her details and opened a credit card. So a lot of the time we're not aware of what is happening. And actually by what you're doing here and putting out on the radio is educating some listeners here. But there are so many different kinds of frauds. You know, you need to keep yourself aware of them. Have a look on the internet. Have a look at the kind of frauds that are being perpetrated. Businesses need to be acutely aware of fraud being impacted on them, not only from external, but internally. And we just need to understand that, you know, we are likely to be a victim or a facilitator of a fraud. We need to educate ourselves, and, you know, mechanisms like the media need to educate the public.
The police branch for this sort of thing is called Action Fraud. Are they helpful in these situations?
My personal opinion is no, they're not. This case here of Lucia's is even more disturbing than the fact that it's just a fraud. She ended up with an offender inside her property, an offender that was on her doorstep for many, many minutes. You actually had the opportunity there of catching somebody. Now, he would have been or she would have been very distant from the actual offenders that are committing the crime. What Action Fraud are doing is they're collating all of the data, and then when the police can build up a pattern, which may well be, you know, it might be many years, it takes many years to take out a boiler room fraud, which this is probably being perpetrated by an organised team, that you need to collate all of that information. So it is indicative on victims to report it. Obviously, we're not going to get the response from the police that we would like because of their budgetary constraints and resource abstractions, but at least you have put your information into the intelligence pot.
David, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.